United made a lightning fast start to this one, almost as if they needed to show some kind of reaction to last week's Derby Day defeat, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they did need to show a reaction. There's been so much talk this week about Ruben Amorim and how, what his future's going to look like. And I think, he needed his players today to step up and, hopefully get a result. But if not get a result, then at least put in a performance to be proud of. Because I think, certainly in that second half against Manchester City last week, they were really, really poor. So, yeah, I think that the positive thing for Manchester United is, it's not the first time this season they've started a game really quickly. We saw them do it at Fulham, even in the opening game against Arsenal. United were arguably the better team for large swathes of those games, but they just couldn't make that dominance count. And today, they end up through some good positive attacking play, getting Robert Sanchez sent off, and then after that, going 2-0 up. So I think ultimately that's the biggest positive for United today, is that they were able to make that early dominance count.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really fast. And sometimes the game at Old Trafford, it just seems to start so quickly when United are in the mood, and the rain probably helped a little bit as well. Janusz, there were 2 goals in that first half and there were 2 red cards. No discussion over the first one for Rob Sanchez, I'm assuming, but there has been some debate over the second one. So Casemiro, he certainly did not agree with the referee's decision. I don't think I've ever seen a player shake his head for that long while trudging off the pitch. Did you agree with the decision?
No, I mean, we see him do that over the course of his career. It's not the first time. As the most experienced player on the pitch, at the very least, where it happened, he needs to know that it's quite a possibility. He's been there, he's done that before. But yeah, to me, it's a little bit too harsh. But it doesn't really matter. I was thinking of how to approach this. You'd like to, be tactical and say what happened on the pitch, but when you get past the entertainment of the game, I think I look at this and it was just from both teams a total farce. I mean, it really was. I really don't know where to start, where to begin. In terms of Chelsea, I think it was the most over-managed or over-coached game I've seen in a long time by Maresca. All these substitutions and shots of him in the stands with his assistants, how he's going to do it, the substitution patterns, the change of formation were for nothing and were wrong, matter of fact. And then, just as I was going to give credit to Manchester United, because as Beth said, that reaction was needed, it was. Still don't trust them. You have Amorim, who's doing, I don't know why he took put Ugarte in at halftime for Šeško. In a game like this, in a situation like this, I wouldn't do it at halftime. Anyway, so there are so many talking points. In the end, Manchester United won it. Do I trust them? Absolutely not. We've seen this before. For Chelsea, that's a second loss in a row. That's of consequence.
Yeah, just on Casemiro there, first Manchester United player ever to score and be sent off in the first half of a Premier League game. So well done to him for that one. That's a record he'll be keeping for a while, I would imagine. Janusz, I really did want to actually speak to you about the Maresca changes. It's not often you see a team go to a 5-3-1 when they've had a red card or something along those lines. Usually teams default into a 4-4-1, don't they? Especially when they started the game in a back four. So this really was different. And he made 2 substitutions, not 1 to start with. And by the 30th minute, there was a third one. Talk us through it.
Well, that just said, look, I mean, hindsight is a fine thing. And I don't know if he could foresee that, Manchester United are going to go down to 10. But I mean, on the 6th minute, he makes 2 substitutions, right? You're not even behind just yet. And you're not playing against Liverpool or some great team that's in great form with tons of momentum, right? I mean, so look, I could understand him going to 3 in the back, right? I mean, if you want 3, okay, that's one thing. But, that at some stage you're going to need pace. And you're taking Pedro and Estevao. So look, if you want Cedar Rabiot there, fine. Estevao can go because, he's just coming back from international duty. He didn't feel well, obviously doesn't know the league, and he's very inexperienced. But Pedro Neto has got pace, can defend as well. I mean, I was thinking, I don't know about you guys, but it was screaming to put in Mal Gusto in whatever shape it was, because you can play Reece James centrally, right? He's played in the back 3. He's often comes and helps inside. I think as the game went on, and then he had to make other changes that kind of, because of it, didn't make sense, right? I mean, do they absolutely need it, knowing that they were behind a 2-0? Do they absolutely need it? Enzo and Caicedo both, right? I mean, you got to get back in the game. So none of that made sense. And I really can't wait to hear what he has to say. And I hope he admits at least to some mistakes, because it really didn't make sense, right? You needed some pace, and you left yourself 6 minutes in with what? With João Pedro. The only solution to eventually losing 2-0. And at the time, what it looked like an easy win for Manchester United, if they didn't shoot themselves in the foot in terms of Casemiro. However you foresee this, but you have to account for that. I mean, this was an easy game.
Yeah, the lots of space and lots of rain. It looked like a game for Neto, didn't it? Just moving into those areas. But hey, there you go. Beth, we'll stick on Chelsea for a second and just talk about Cole Palmer here. Exited after half an hour. It wasn't immediately clear that he was injured, because he was quite frustrated when he came off, and it didn't look like the reaction of a man who had resigned himself to coming off injured. It looked like a guy who had unfinished business on the pitch. However, he was later pictured with an ice pack on his groin, I think it was, so clearly nursing something. Not the first time he's been injured this season. So is this currently Chelsea's number one problem or issue to contend with?
Yeah, I think it's certainly up there. You know, he was talked about in the week, obviously played very, very well against Bayern Munich, despite Chelsea not going on to win that game. Talked about as being among the best players in the world. And on his day, he definitely can be that. I still think he needs to show it, you know, consistently. I know obviously he had a great season the season before last. The start of last season, he was great. But in the second half of the season, you know, he fell off a little bit. But he's still so important to what Chelsea do. And I did find, obviously at the time, that substitute just seemed slightly crazy, because, as you say, he's been their main man, and you know he didn't look like he was injured. He looked frustrated when he came off. Obviously, then we did see him with ice on his groin, so I would imagine it was an injury related substitution. But that, to me, that's slightly odd, because why, if he's that injured that he needs to come off after half an hour, why would you risk him in the first place? And if you're sort of bringing him off then to avoid further injury, that's almost from Maresca like saying, well, this game's gone now. And to send that message to your players after half an hour, to me, was, you know, maybe not the right way to go about it. But I totally agree about the Pedro Neto substitution. I think his pace, and also he's so hard working, Pedro Neto as well. He tracks back, he puts, you know, he's got bags of energy. So that felt like a strange one at the time. And then what felt strange for me in the second half was bringing on Tyreek George instead of Alejandro Garnacho, because, you know, there'd been obviously so much talk before this game about Garnacho, and maybe it was a case for Maresca of not wanting to throw him into that kind of game. But it just sort of felt like Chelsea needed a little spark. And I think, you know, he's the sort of player, he obviously would have got a pretty hostile reception when he came on, but I think he's the sort of player who would maybe thrive with that. And I just think, again, his pace and that sort of ingenuity out wide at that point in the game when Chelsea are really trying to get back into it, it would have made a lot more sense to me than bringing on George. But obviously Maresca had his reasons. I think, you know, tactically the game plan that he had, I'm still not quite sure what it was, but they nearly got a point out of it, so what do I know?
Yeah, 3 subs down at that point, weren't they? So limited amounts you can do off the bench in the second half, but they still had Gittins and they still had Garnacho. And Janusz, I just want to come back to this point, because it almost looked a bit like kids football at points in that second half. It was a big old pitch, loads of space, 10v10, puddles of rain collecting. The ball wasn't moving properly. It was a bit amateurish for everyone, really, and it felt a bit random at times. Isn't that the kind of environment that you would like to throw a Garnacho or a Gittins into?
Yeah, it was exactly what you said, because even when you think about, you know, Chelsea throwing in a third center back, I mean, it was a bit of a game of head tennis, right? I mean, if you think, you know, how the penalty came about, right? Šeško beats Chalobah for that one, right? The first goal, easy and a free header from Dorgu, if I remember correctly, to Fernandes. Then comes the third goal, right? I mean, there are 3 headers. Dorgu and Shaw does a great job in coming up for the ball that Jorgensen should have come out. And then Casemiro heads it in absolutely free. So you know, it was that kind of game. And I just think that all those substitutions that we spoke about kind of made it difficult then for Maresca to change that. I mean, could Gittins come in the end? Obviously, for his attacking prowess and for his pace. Defensively, he's not going to give you much, but you didn't need that. Garnacho, I was thinking about it, Beth, and you know, it goes both ways, right? I mean, playing against your own club, but I think if you Maresca, and I've been in situations like this, if you throw him on, then it becomes all about Garnacho, because the way they would have gotten on him, I think there comes a point that you stop passing to him. You know what I mean? Because you need something, you need a goal. And then, especially he doesn't have the greatest of mentalities, right? He's not necessarily Garnacho, the kind of guy, as we know him from Manchester United, that, you can get him riled up in a situation like this. So there's a risk in that alone. And then if I'm a teammate, and that would have been bedlam, I think, the way he's left and not very much liked there, right, from anybody. So I think that maybe that was a right decision, but yeah, as you've said, Beth or Sam, I think Gittins could have been an option.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that was maybe just me from a neutral perspective, wanting even more chaos at the end of that game. But like you say, I do completely understand, because, like you say, it would have then become the Garnacho show. So I think that was probably a difficult decision for the manager in the end.
Probably, yeah. Janusz, you mentioned him there, and I'll stick with you again. Benjamin Šeško, taken off at halftime. I don't know if that was injury related or not, but it was a quiet first half for him, I guess, from when he was on the pitch. And when you're, 1 or 2 up and you're against 10 men, I bet the United fans were sat there going, go on, this is the time. Get on the score sheet, get yourself on the board. This is where your career starts. And it still just didn't seem to quite happen for him. What did you make of the performance and Manchester United's ability to play to him as well?
Well, that's an issue, right? I mean, you still have that, I mean, if I look at Diallo, I mean, when he moves and all that, but can't cross or pass properly for the life of me. I mean, in this game, if you watch, I mean, he's a useful player for them, but I can understand why he doesn't always play from the start. And the crossing, Dorgu, I thought was very good today. Yeah, he's been pretty good. I mean, if there's one player over the course of the season so far, you can see that he's improving, right? So maybe we'll give Amorim something for that. But again, I mean, not still a finished product when it comes to crossing. But you know what? I mean, I look at Šeško and I look at this win, which obviously, after everything we've said, is so important to Manchester United in the moment they're in with their manager. I mean, it's because of him that to a large degree that they're there, right? I mean, he was a good reference point. So I would have kept him there because if you look at that header that led into the red card, I mean, he's still a player, even if he doesn't do what he was bought for, which is score goals, right? I mean, he is pretty good in holding on to the ball or doing just that. And I think, as we know now, watching towards the end, more of that was needed. So I would have kept him on the pitch the whole game, but unless there's injury, we always have to say that because we don't know. It didn't make sense tactically in any way for me for him to be replaced at halftime. I mean, Amorim tells us all about how he wants to play. He wants to attack. He wants to do this or that. I mean, this game was there to be closed. Manchester United needed to come out with Šeško in the lineup, score the third goal, done and dusted, no drama in the end. So not a great game, but the way it kind of panned out for him, I think if he stayed on the pitch, maybe we'd have something better to say about him.
Yeah, maybe. Beth, talking Manchester United and talking tactics there. All week, people were asking Ruben Amorim, please change your shape, change your formation. He did, because they were reduced to 10 men. So he literally had to. We finally saw a bit of tactical flexibility from him. But look, big picture here. He was the topic leading into the game. We all had our say. We had a great debate on ESPN this week on video form and in written form from Rob and Mark, arguing the to and the fro and the for and against. And it's a very complex issue. Sir Jim Ratcliffe flew in for a visit this week and it got that intense. Does this result do anything to quieten the noise, or was it just such a weird day that it'll almost do nothing for him?
Yeah, I think it quietens the noise temporarily. I think it maybe buys him a little bit more time. I think had the result not gone United's way today, and even if even Chelsea had come back at the end there and managed to snatch a point, then I think there would have been a lot more talk along the lines of he's got to go and he's got to go imminently. Do I think he will still be there come the end of the season? Probably not. Do I think that today's game means that United are on the up? Probably not. I think a lot of those same problems that we've seen with United for many a year now are still there. But I think that the positive is you could see today that the fight and the spirit from the players, and I think he doesn't seem to have lost that buy-in from the players completely, which it bodes well for him, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think those conversations will be carrying on in the background, and you live and die by your results week by week when you're manager of a club as big as Manchester United. So it will all very much, I think, depend on the next game, and then the next game after that, and the next game after that. I think for him to be really sort of for that noise to go away completely, United probably have to win 2-3 games on the bounce and start to really look like a great team, which at this moment in time doesn't feel like they're quite there yet. But there are positives to take, certainly from the first half today. And if they can replicate that going forward, then maybe that will quieten that noise a little bit.
When was the last time that's the issue for them, right? I mean, when was the last time they had a run 3 games plus? I couldn't see. I know they won 2 games here in the United States. Before that, I got tired of scrolling down just to find it. No, I'm serious. And that's the issue. Because even in this game, and again, I don't want to rain on their parade. There was enough of rain there already today because they've won. So, let's take the positive of it. But that's the issue with Manchester United is that, they have that, they have such a weak mentality, I think, as a team, that even today in that second half, it was like when things go against them, right? Here we go again type of thing. And, I mean, that goal again, from Chalobah, and then Andre Santos almost scored, right? I mean, you could sense it if that game was a little bit longer. Even this Chelsea team that was all over the place would have found a way. So that's why we have to wait and see, because, this is a Manchester United club that went from culture of excellence to culture of losing every which way possible, right? And so we always say that winning can be a habit, so is losing. And I tell you what, this game to me didn't answer very much. It really didn't. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, Janusz, to answer your question there, this is the first time Manchester United have won back-to-back home Premier League games in the same season under the same manager since December 2023. So yeah, probably not great. And that guy that's waiting for 5 wins in a row to cut his hair, he must be feeling really, really worried these days. Right, let's flip it to Maresca quickly. Janusz, if you're Maresca here, how do you react to this game? Internally, do you just write it off as a bit of a natural disaster, or is there enough there to make you genuinely quite worried about some of the other things at play, some wider concerns?
Well, I think he'll react. I don't know the man, but just read it, and his expression of I read something about what work is. Disasi not being happy, not being squad. About his father and all that. So I think he's a hard man. He has to be fair. I mean, he's done pretty well, I think, because remember last season, before the season, none of us, I think, could have foreseen that they're going to be in the Champions League, right? I mean, they've won the Conference League. Okay, not usually for Chelsea, but they've won it. They made it to the Champions League. We all talked about the issues on and off the pitch. That's been said already. We've talked about the issue of so many players that he has, right? So I think they'll be all right. But again, there's just enough doubt because of some of the injuries and some of the results right now is that they need to build on that, right? I don't know at this point. Do we know for sure their best team? And I think we could come close to it, but because of the rotation, because of what you see the biggest teams in the world, you kind of got to know exactly who and when and how. And that's got lost a little bit in the games against Bayern Munich and Manchester United. But I'm just going to reserve my judgment here a little bit because that game went sideways very quickly, didn't it? I mean, 5-6 minutes to have that. Still, you ask for a better reaction.